Welcome to World Report. I'm Jash Hirani. After 4 weeks of intense missile strikes and drone exchanges between Iran on one hand and United States and Israel on the other in the West Asia region, and after the US-Israel alliance wiped out much of Iran's top leadership, Washington and Tehran have agreed to come to the negotiating table. Reports suggest that these talks could possibly be held in Pakistan's capital city, Islamabad. US President Donald Trump on Truth Social announced a temporary halt on the strikes targeting Iranian military infrastructure, power plants, and energy facilities for a period of 5 days, later extended to 10 days. However, while these peace talks are underway, hostilities continue between America's key ally in the Middle East, Israel, and Iran. The Iranian regime, on one hand, continues to deny that any peace talks are taking place with the US, and on the other hand has reportedly sent 5-point plan to end the conflict. Meanwhile, the US has proposed a 15-point plan which includes 1 month ceasefire in the West Asia, an end to Iran's support for regional proxies, and the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz. This temporary pause in the conflict has been interpreted differently by geopolitical analysts. While negotiations appear to be progressing, reports also suggest that US is also deploying around 5,000 Marines to the Gulf, a region that has suffered significant collateral damage from Iranian strikes. Tehran, meanwhile, has been fortifying Kharg Island amid concerns that the US might attempt to seize it, given that nearly 90% of Iran's oil exports pass through this island. The Strait of Hormuz, however, remains largely closed, leading to a sharp rise in the global crude oil prices. On a lighter note, it is being said that the Iranian oil was under sanction for decades. Global oil prices are now being dictated by Tehran, thanks to its chokehold over the Strait of Hormuz. Or is it, as Trump quips, Strait of Trump?
They have to open it up. They have to open up the Strait of Hormuz.
A section of analysts believe that this conflict may de-escalate following the temporary cessation between US and Iran. One reason cited is domestic pressure on President Trump, as crude oil prices triggered by disruptions in the Strait of Hormuz have fueled inflation in the US and impacted his approval ratings, especially with the midterm elections approaching. A second factor is growing pressure from Gulf states, which has been targeted by Iranian Shahid drones as well as ballistic missiles and cruise missiles. Additionally, their oil exports have been severely disrupted due to the closure of the Strait of Hormuz, affecting their revenues for over a month. A third reason is the lack of support from NATO. The US-led alliance has not come to America's aid in the way Trump expected. Expressing its dissatisfaction, Trump reportedly said, "We will remember," hinting at frustration with European allies and possibly explaining his search for an exit strategy. However, another school of thought argues that conflict could intensify further. President Trump still holds what many call his biggest advantage, unpredictability, and may be using this pause strategically. The recent escalation has also impacted global markets with significant losses reported among American investors. This temporary pause could help stabilize markets and crude oil prices, at least until the US potentially launches a larger operation against Iran. There are also reports suggesting that US may consider deploying boots on the ground, if not fully, then in a limited capacity, to gain control over strategic locations like Kharg Island and Strait of Hormuz. This would help manage oil prices and give Washington time to pursue its broader objective of regime change in Iran. If US withdraws from current conditions, Iran could emerge with a significantly enhanced influence in the West Asia. With geography on its side, Tehran could consolidate control in the post-conflict phase, similar to what some analysts describe as a toll booth system. Iran could also retain strategic influence over groups like Hamas, Hezbollah, and Houthis. While Hamas has been significantly damaged, Hezbollah continues its engagement with Israel, from the north, and Houthis have yet to even start to involve themselves in the conflict. Geographically, the situation is even more critical. The Strait of Hormuz remains a choke point, while the Bab al-Mandeb near the Red Sea, controlled by the Houthis, handles nearly 12% of global oil trade. Saudi Arabia currently uses this route to export oil via the Red Sea to the Gulf of Aden and beyond. If this route is disrupted, it would create further major crisis in the US and the global markets. At this stage, exiting the conflict could also leave Israel vulnerable to renewed attacks similar to October 7. If the Iranian regime survives, so do its allied networks, making it, some analysts argue, more effective to cut off the head of the octopus rather than its tentacles. Additionally, US ambitions to counter China's global influence may remain incomplete if Iran regime stays intact. The US-Israel bloc reportedly aimed to destabilize Iran by targeting Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei, like they did in Venezuela. However, developments took a different turn, with the regime becoming more aggressive, particularly under the rising influence of Mojtaba Khamenei. With Gulf sheikdoms lacking strong military capabilities and Iran maintaining its network across West Asia, there may be limited resistance to Tehran's dominance if the US exits now. Many analysts believe that Trump is buying time to regroup and strike at the moment of its choosing. But as always, with Trump's unpredictability remains the defining factor. But if the US exits now, Iran would be a tougher nut to crack in the times to come. Till I see you again for World Report next Saturday at 8, thanks for watching.